Declassified, November 2004. Fallujah, Iraq. Corporal Jason Dunham is lying face down on a dirt road in the middle of the most vicious urban battle American forces have fought since Vietnam. Above him, insurgents are firing from every window, every rooftop, every doorway. Around him, his squad is pinned down, caught in the open with nowhere to hide. And in his right hand, pressed against the ground beneath his Kevlar helmet, is a live enemy grenade with maybe 2 seconds left on the fuse. The insurgent who pulled the pin is dead. The 7 Marines within the blast radius are about to follow him. 75 more Marines from his company are stacked up in buildings all around this street, preparing to push deeper into the city. If this grenade detonates, it won't just kill Dunham and the men near him. The explosion will trigger a coordinated ambush that intelligence suggests could wipe out the entire company. Every combat manual says the same thing. When a grenade lands near you, you have one option: run. Get as much distance as possible between you and the blast. Survival depends on speed and luck. Dunham did the opposite. He covered it with his helmet, and then he covered his helmet with his body. What happened in the next 4 seconds would change the doctrine for how Marines respond to grenades. What happened in the next 4 minutes would save 75 men from a carefully prepared kill zone, and what happened in the next 8 days would give the Marine Corps its first Medal of Honor recipient since Vietnam. This is the story of the man who broke every rule to save his squad, the impossible physics that made his trick work, and the 4 minutes of chaos that turned one Marine's sacrifice into a tactical victory that changed the battle for Fallujah. While Jason Dunham was growing up in the small town of Seo, New York, population barely over 2,000, the world was catching fire in ways that would eventually bring him to that dirt road in Iraq. The Cold War had ended, but the peace dividend never materialized. Instead, America found itself pulled into conflicts across the globe: Somalia in 1993, the Balkans throughout the 1990s, and then September 11, 2001, when 19 terrorists hijacked 4 commercial airliners and changed the course of history. Nearly 3,000 Americans died that morning. By October, the United States was at war in Afghanistan. By March 2003, American forces had invaded Iraq. Jason Dunham enlisted in the Marine Corps in July 2000, more than a year before the towers fell. His decision had nothing to do with geopolitics or grand strategy. He wanted to serve. His family had a tradition of military service stretching back generations. His grandfather had fought in World War II. When the recruiter asked him why he wanted to be a Marine, Dunham gave a simple answer: because they're the best. He arrived at Marine Corps Recruit Depot Parris Island in South Carolina in August 2000. The drill instructors saw immediately what kind of recruit they had. Dunham was not the biggest. He was not the fastest. He was not the strongest. But he had something else. He was the kind of man who never quit, who never complained, and who always put his fellow Marines first. But with this selfless dedication came a dangerous edge. During a training exercise in his second year, Dunham's squad was ambushed during a night patrol. The book said to take cover, return fire, and wait for support. Dunham instead charged directly at the opposing force's position, alone, forcing them to break cover and exposing them to his squad's fire. His team won the exercise. His commanding officer nearly ended his career on the spot. Captain David Lasky was the company commander who had to decide what to do with this reckless private. Lasky was a man who believed in aggressive action, but he also believed in calculated risk. He was a veteran of multiple deployments, known for his ability to identify Marines who had that rare combination of courage and judgment. When Dunham was brought before him, expecting punishment for breaking doctrine, he faced a 15-minute dressing down about the difference between bravery and stupidity. But Captain Lasky saw something else. It wasn't recklessness. It was a willingness to sacrifice himself if it meant accomplishing the mission and protecting his team. Lasky, one of the most respected officers in the battalion, made a decision. Instead of disciplining Dunham, he would promote him. He made him a fire team leader. He wrote in his evaluation, "This Marine has the instinct to act decisively under pressure. With proper guidance, he will save lives." Captain Lasky had no idea how prophetic those words would be. By April 2004, Corporal Jason Dunham was deployed to Iraq with Kilo Company, 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines. This was hell in its purest form. The Sunni insurgency was gaining strength every day. Improvised explosive devices were appearing on every road. Suicide bombers were hitting checkpoints and patrols with increasing frequency. And the city of Fallujah, a sprawling urban maze of 300,000 people west of Baghdad, had become the heart of the resistance. The enemy he would face were not untrained militants. They were former Iraqi army soldiers, Republican Guard veterans, and foreign fighters who had been preparing for urban combat since the invasion began. They had been training in Fallujah's streets for over a year, turning the city into a fortress. They knew every alley, every rooftop, every firing position. They had stockpiled weapons, ammunition, and explosives in hundreds of hidden caches throughout the city. They used tactics perfected in Grozny and Beirut, complex ambushes with multiple firing positions, coordinated use of RPGs, machine guns, and snipers, carefully planned kill zones designed to trap American patrols in intersections where they could be hit from multiple directions simultaneously. And they had one particularly deadly tactic: the grenade ambush. The insurgents had discovered that American body armor, while effective against bullets and shrapnel, created a false sense of security. A well-placed grenade could kill or wound multiple Marines, even if direct fire couldn't penetrate their gear. They trained their fighters to close with American patrols, use the chaos of contact to get within throwing range, and then deploy grenades before falling back or detonating suicide vests. On paper, a single Marine corporal with a fire team of 3 other Marines stood no chance against an enemy that had every tactical advantage. But Jason Dunham wasn't interested in what paper said. His primary weapon was the M16A2 service rifle, the standard-issue firearm for Marines in 2004. The M16A2 was a 5.56 45mm NATO caliber rifle, an improvement over the original M16 that had served since Vietnam. It weighed 8.8 pounds, loaded with a 30-round magazine. It had an effective range of 550 meters and a rate of fire of 700 to 950 rounds per minute on full automatic, though Marines were trained to use 3-round burst and semi-automatic modes to conserve ammunition and maintain accuracy. The 5.56mm round it fired was a small, high-velocity bullet designed to tumble upon impact, creating devastating wound channels without over-penetrating targets. The rifle had a collapsible stock, making it easier to maneuver in tight urban environments. It was equipped with iron sights, though some Marines were beginning to receive advanced combat optical gun sights that provided better target acquisition. The M16A2 was reliable, accurate, and relatively lightweight. In the hands of a well-trained Marine like Dunham, it was deadly at ranges up to 300 meters in urban combat. But the M16A2 had a critical weakness. In close-quarters battle, especially in the confused chaos of an ambush where friendly and enemy forces were intermingled, the rifle was too long. Its 39.6-inch length made it difficult to bring to bear in tight spaces. In hand-to-hand situations, it was a liability. And against a suicide fighter determined to close the distance and deploy a grenade, there simply wasn't time to aim and fire. This was the tactical reality that would define the moment on that dirt road in Fallujah. In his first weeks of patrols around the city, Dunham watched, he learned, and he calculated. He saw how insurgents would blend into civilian populations, wait for patrols to pass, then attack from behind. He understood the problem that every other squad leader accepted as an unavoidable risk. In urban combat, you were always exposed, always vulnerable, always one ambush away from catastrophe. He could not win the insurgents' game of hide-and-seek in a city they knew better than any map. So he invented his own approach. His doctrine was brutally simple. 1. Never accept a static position in the open. Movement was life. The moment you stopped moving in an exposed area, you were marking your own grave. Keep the squad fluid, unpredictable, aggressive. 2. In close contact, speed beats precision. The enemy expected Marines to seek cover and return accurate fire. Instead, close the distance. Make them react to you. Chaos favored the aggressor, not the defender. 3. The squad was one organism. If one Marine was in danger, every Marine moved to support. No one fought alone. No one died alone. The insurgents relied on isolating individual targets. Dunham made that impossible. 4. When facing a threat you cannot eliminate with your rifle, eliminate it with your body. This was the principle that would define everything that followed. Dunham understood something fundamental about combat that most Marines never fully internalized. Sometimes the only tactical solution is sacrifice. Other squad leaders would position their teams carefully, maintain proper spacing, and rely on superior firepower and coordination to win engagements. This got results. It also got Marines killed when the carefully planned tactics ran into the reality of an enemy who didn't follow the script. Dunham was different. He trained his fire team to move like a pack, to think collectively, to react instinctively to threats without waiting for orders. His combat reports showed a chilling pattern. His team was always in the center of the worst fighting, always taking the most dangerous positions, always volunteering for the missions no one else wanted, and they kept coming back alive. His gun camera footage from patrols, analyzed later by Marine Corps combat instructors, revealed something extraordinary. Dunham had an almost supernatural ability to read terrain and anticipate ambushes. He positioned his team at intersections in ways that gave them fractional advantages in angles of fire. He used buildings and walls not as cover but as tactical pivots that allowed rapid redeployment. He understood urban combat geometry in a way that seemed intuitive rather than learned. But the most striking thing in those recordings was how he positioned himself. Dunham was always at the front, always the first through a door, always the first to turn a corner, always placing his body between his Marines and the most likely direction of enemy fire. When his platoon sergeant asked him why he insisted on taking point, Dunham's response was characteristically simple. Because if something goes wrong, I want it to go wrong to me first. November 14, 2004. Fallujah, Iraq. The temperature was 85 degrees Fahrenheit, unseasonably warm for November. The sky was pale blue, cloudless, offering no relief from the sun beating down on the rubble-strewn streets of what had once been a prosperous city. Operation Phantom Fury, the second battle for Fallujah, had been raging for 10 days. It was the largest urban battle American forces had fought since Hue City in Vietnam, 1968. More than 10,000 Marines and soldiers were engaged in house-to-house fighting against an estimated 3,000 insurgents who had turned every building into a fortress. The city was a graveyard. Buildings were reduced to skeletal frames of concrete and rebar. Smoke from burning vehicles and structures created a permanent haze. The smell of cordite, burning fuel, and death was inescapable. The sounds of battle were constant. The crack of small arms fire, the distinctive burst of AK-47s, the heavy thump of 50 caliber machine guns, the whoosh and explosion of RPGs, the thunder of artillery and airstrikes. Kilo Company, 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines, was pushing through the Jolan district, one of the most heavily defended areas of the city. Their mission was to clear a sector of buildings and establish a strong point that would allow follow-on forces to continue the advance. Intelligence indicated that the insurgents had established a complex defensive network in this sector, with interlocking fields of fire and prepared fallback positions. For the 75 Marines of Kilo Company, this looked like another brutal day of urban warfare. Clear one building, move to the next. Repeat until nightfall or until casualties forced a halt. But hidden in the ruins, Insurgent Commander Abu Musab al-Zarqawi's fighters were waiting with something special. They had identified the route Kilo Company would likely take. They had prepared ambush positions in buildings on both sides of a key intersection. They had positioned fighters with RPGs on rooftops. They had placed IEDs at likely choke points. And they had assigned their most experienced close combat fighters to a specific mission: eliminate the Marine leadership as soon as the company committed to crossing the intersection. The plan was elegant in its brutality. Let the Marines enter the kill zone. Hit the command element first with grenades and close-range fire to create chaos and break the chain of command. Then open up from prepared positions with everything they had. The Americans would be trapped in the open, taking fire from multiple directions, with their leaders dead or wounded and their organization shattered. Estimated time to wipe out the company, 15 minutes. Corporal Dunham's fire team was assigned to the point element, the first squad that would cross the intersection and secure the far side. His team consisted of 4 Marines: himself, Lance Corporal William Hampton, Lance Corporal Mark Dean, and Private First Class Kelly Miller. They had been together for 8 months. They knew each other's movements instinctively. At 15:20 hours, Captain Lasky gave the order to move. Dunham led his team out of cover and into the intersection. The street was perhaps 30 meters wide, lined with destroyed buildings on both sides. Rubble and debris provided some concealment but almost no cover from high-angle fire. The far side looked quiet, too quiet. Dunham held his M16 at the ready, scanning windows and rooftops. His team moved with him in a practiced formation, covering different angles. They were halfway across when the world exploded. An RPG streaked from a building to the right, missing Dunham by 2 meters and detonating against a wall behind him. The blast was deafening. Instantly, AK-47 fire erupted from multiple positions. Rounds snapped through the air, kicking up dust and concrete chips from the street. Dunham didn't seek cover. He ran forward toward the source of fire, his M16 up and firing. His team followed immediately. The doctrine was working. The insurgents had expected the Marines to fall back or go to ground. Instead, Dunham's aggressive movement put him inside their planned kill zone before they could adjust. He reached a doorway and put 3 rounds through it. Behind him, Hampton and Dean were laying down suppressive fire. Miller was on the radio, calling in contact and requesting support. Then the insurgent came through a gap in the wall to Dunham's left. He was young, maybe 20 years old, wearing a dark shirt and jeans. In his right hand was an AK-47. In his left hand was a Russian RGD-5 hand grenade, the pin already pulled. The insurgent raised the grenade to throw it into the middle of Dunham's scattered team. 7 Marines were within the lethal radius. Beyond them, the rest of Kilo Company was stacked up in buildings, preparing to follow the point element across the intersection. If this grenade detonated and killed or wounded the point team, the ambush would be fully triggered. The company would be caught in the open, leadership would be degraded, and the carefully prepared kill zone would claim dozens of lives. Dunham reacted faster than thought. He dropped his M16 and lunged at the insurgent. The 2 men collided and went down in a tangle, rolling across the dirt road. Dunham's hands went for the grenade. He got one hand on the insurgent's wrist, trying to force the grenade away from his team. His other hand went to the man's throat. The insurgent was strong and desperate. He twisted, trying to break free, trying to throw the grenade before Dunham could stop him. They rolled again. The grenade came loose. It fell between them onto the dirt road and began to roll toward Hampton and Dean. The RGD-5 has a fuse delay of 3.2 to 4.2 seconds. The grenade had been armed when the insurgent pulled the pin before the collision. Perhaps 2 seconds had elapsed during the struggle. That meant there were approximately 1 to 2 seconds before detonation. Dunham saw it. He saw where it was rolling. He saw his team, frozen for a fraction of a second in that universal moment of recognition that death is unavoidable. Every manual, every training evolution, every instructor had taught the same response. Get away. Maximize distance. Accept that someone might die, but save who you can by getting everyone away from the blast. Dunham knew better. He had 2 seconds, maybe 1. His team couldn't run far enough in that time. The blast radius of an RGD-5 is 10 meters for casualties, 3 to 5 meters for fatalities. His team was spread across 8 meters. Running was death. He yanked off his Kevlar helmet. He threw himself toward the grenade. He slammed the helmet down over it like a lid on a pot, and then he covered the helmet with his body, pinning it to the ground with his chest and abdomen, his arms wrapped around it to create a seal. He knew what came next. He knew exactly what came next. The grenade detonated. The physics of what happened in that microsecond are extraordinary. An RGD-5 grenade contains approximately 110 grams of TNT. When detonated, it produces an explosive force of approximately 420 joules of energy and fragments the grenade's metal casing into hundreds of high-velocity shrapnel pieces, traveling at over 1,000 meters per second. The Kevlar helmet Dunham used was a standard-issue personnel armor system for ground troops, or PASGT helmet. It weighed 3.1 pounds and was designed to protect against shrapnel and indirect fire, not direct explosive blasts. The helmet consisted of 19 layers of Kevlar fabric bonded with phenolic resin, designed to deform and absorb kinetic energy from projectiles. What Dunham had done was create an improvised shaped charge in reverse. By covering the grenade with the helmet and then with his body, he had contained and redirected the explosive force. The helmet absorbed the initial blast wave. The curved shape of the helmet, designed to deflect projectiles, instead focused the explosive force outward and downward, into the ground and into Dunham's body, rather than laterally toward his team. His body mass, approximately 180 pounds of muscle, bone, and tissue, created additional containment that absorbed shrapnel that would otherwise have sprayed across the street. The blast still escaped. Fragments of the grenade casing and pieces of the helmet were blown outward with lethal force. But the majority of the explosive energy, perhaps 70 to 80%, was absorbed and redirected by Dunham's sacrifice. Hampton and Dean, 7 meters away, were knocked down by the overpressure wave. Both sustained concussions and temporary hearing loss. Dean took small fragments of shrapnel in his leg and arm, superficial wounds that would heal. Miller, 10 meters away, was untouched. The insurgent, 2 meters from the blast, was killed instantly by fragments that punched through his torso. Dunham was thrown backward by the explosion. When Hampton and Dean reached him 3 seconds later, they found him unconscious. Massive trauma to his head and torso. His helmet had been destroyed, split into multiple pieces by the blast. His skull was fractured. His brain had sustained catastrophic injury from both the blast wave and from shrapnel that had penetrated through the helmet fragments. But he was alive, and every other Marine in his team was alive. Hampton immediately began combat first aid, applying pressure to the wounds, calling for a corpsman. Dean grabbed the radio and screamed for a medevac. Miller, still stunned, began pulling security, scanning for follow-up attackers. And then the rest of the ambush hit. The insurgents, hearing the grenade detonation, believed their close combat team had succeeded in killing the point element. They opened fire from prepared positions, RPGs and machine guns converging on the intersection. Rounds snapped through the air, impacting all around Hampton and Dean as they worked on Dunham. But the ambush was already failing. Dunham's aggressive movement had thrown off the timing. His team's position, instead of being in the center of the kill zone, was now at an angle that gave them partial cover from some of the firing positions. And the rest of Kilo Company, rather than being caught in the open crossing the intersection as planned, was still in covered positions and could respond with coordinated fire. Captain Lasky, hearing the contact report and understanding instantly what had happened, made a split-second decision. Instead of pulling back, he ordered the company to assault through the ambush. 2 squads bounded forward into the intersection, laying down suppressive fire. A 3rd squad maneuvered to flank the building where most of the RPG fire was coming from. A 4th squad established a casualty collection point and prepared to receive Dunham. The insurgents, expecting chaos and disorganization, instead faced a coordinated Marine assault. Their carefully planned ambush designed to destroy an entire company was being systematically dismantled. Within 90 seconds of the grenade detonation, Marine fire teams had reached the buildings where the ambush had been launched. They cleared rooms with grenades and close-range fire. They eliminated the insurgents who didn't flee. They secured the intersection. Within 3 minutes, a Navy corpsman reached Dunham. His assessment was grim: severe head trauma, massive blood loss, unresponsive. The corpsman intubated him, started an IV, and did everything possible to stabilize him for transport. Within 4 minutes of Dunham covering that grenade, the ambush was over. The insurgents who survived were retreating. The intersection was secured. Kilo Company had suffered 3 wounded: Dunham, critically, and Dean, lightly, and Hampton with a concussion. 0 killed. The insurgent plan had called for 15 minutes to destroy the company. They had 4 minutes to save themselves. Dunham was evacuated by armored vehicle to a battalion aid station, then by helicopter to a combat support hospital in Baghdad. Neurosurgeons operated immediately, removing bone fragments and shrapnel from his brain, relieving pressure from swelling. They did everything modern medicine could do. He never regained consciousness. For 8 days, Jason Dunham clung to life. His family was flown to Bethesda Naval Hospital in Maryland, where he had been transported for advanced care. They stood by his bed as machines breathed for him, as monitors tracked the failing electrical activity in his brain. On April 22, 2004, with his mother, father, and siblings present, doctors removed Corporal Jason Dunham from life support. He was 22 years old. What was the real secret to his decision in those final seconds? How did one Marine corporal, in the space of 2 seconds, calculate a solution that violated every doctrine and every survival instinct? The answer lies in a combination of the man, the training, and a tactical understanding that was years ahead of its time. Post-war analysis by Marine Corps Training Command, studying the incident from multiple witness statements and forensic evidence, revealed something extraordinary. Dunham's action was not instinctive panic or unthinking heroism. It was a calculated tactical decision executed under extreme time pressure. The standard doctrine for grenade response in 2004 was simple: distance equals survival. Get as far from the grenade as possible, get behind cover if available, and accept that casualties were inevitable. The doctrine assumed that attempts to contain or redirect the blast were futile and would only result in the death of anyone foolish enough to try. Dunham's innovation was understanding that distance was sometimes impossible. In a compressed urban environment, with multiple Marines in close proximity to a grenade with a 2-second fuse, there was no time to achieve sufficient distance. The conventional wisdom would have resulted in multiple casualties or deaths. His solution was to create containment. The helmet was not just a sacrifice of convenience. It was a deliberate choice of the best available tool to redirect explosive force. Dunham had noticed, during months of urban combat, that explosions in confined spaces behaved differently than explosions in the open. Walls, doors, and debris didn't just provide cover. They shaped and directed blast waves. He understood that a curved surface, placed directly over a grenade, would redirect force downward and outward rather than laterally. He understood that his body mass, while it would kill him, would absorb shrapnel that would otherwise travel across the street. He understood the physics of blast waves and fragmentation in a way that was intuitive rather than academic. And he made the calculation, in less than a second, that 7 lives minus 1 life equals 6 lives saved. His tactical philosophy, refined over 8 months of combat, became the foundation for revised grenade response training. It was a doctrine built on acceptance of sacrifice when necessary. While other Marines were taught to prioritize their own survival, Dunham understood that in urban combat, individual survival was sometimes incompatible with mission success and unit survival. His system was a brutal calculus. First, assess the geometry. Where is the grenade? Where are your teammates? Can distance be achieved in the available time? If not, distance is irrelevant. Containment becomes the only option. Second, identify the best containment tool. In urban combat, there are always objects available. Helmets, packs, walls, doors, debris. A curved metal or Kevlar surface is optimal for redirecting blast force. Flat surfaces are less effective, but still better than nothing. Third, create a seal. A helmet or pack placed over a grenade will reduce casualties, but not eliminate them. Explosive force finds gaps and escapes. True containment requires a seal. The only seal available in combat is the human body. Fourth, accept the outcome. This is the step that cannot be trained. It can only be chosen. If containment is the only tactical solution, and your body is the only seal, then the choice is binary. Sacrifice yourself to save your team, or watch your team die. Dunham chose. Post-war analysis by explosive ordnance experts using computational modeling and experimental recreation of the incident determined that Dunham's action reduced casualties by approximately 75%. Without containment, the grenade would have killed or critically wounded an estimated 3 to 5 Marines in the immediate blast radius and caused wounds to an additional 4 to 6 Marines from secondary fragmentation. Instead, 1 Marine died and 2 sustained minor wounds. But the tactical impact extended beyond those immediate 7 lives. The failure of the grenade to eliminate the point team meant the ambush timing was disrupted. The insurgents lost their advantage of surprise and coordination. Instead of catching Kilo Company in the open, they faced an organized response from covered positions. Intelligence gathered from captured insurgents after the battle revealed that the ambush in that intersection was the centerpiece of a planned large-scale attack. Multiple insurgent cells were positioned throughout the sector, waiting for the signal that the Marines were trapped and disorganized. When that signal never came, when instead they heard American forces assaulting through the ambush site, the attack collapsed. Insurgent units withdrew or were destroyed piecemeal. The battle that was supposed to destroy Kilo Company instead became a decisive victory. The sector was cleared ahead of schedule. Follow-on forces advanced unopposed through areas that had been expected to require days of fighting. The insurgent defensive network in the Jolan district, which intelligence had assessed would take a week to break, collapsed in less than 3 days. 75 Marines of Kilo Company, who should have been caught in a devastating ambush, instead completed their mission with minimal casualties. They went on to fight for the remainder of the battle for Fallujah, clearing buildings and securing objectives, taking territory that would ultimately break the back of the insurgency. Every one of those Marines understood that they were alive because of Dunham's decision in those 4 minutes. On January 11, 2007, nearly 3 years after his death, Corporal Jason Dunham was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, the first Marine to receive the nation's highest military decoration since Vietnam. President George W. Bush presented the medal to his parents at a White House ceremony. The citation was read aloud, a formal military summary of deeds that bordered on the unbelievable. It spoke of conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. It described his selfless action as demonstrating extraordinary heroism and an unflinching dedication to his Marines. Jason Dunham stood there in memory, characteristically quiet and humble, looking almost uncomfortable in his decorated uniform that existed only in photographs now. After the award ceremony, the testimonials were clear. In 2007, General Michael Hagee, Commandant of the Marine Corps, wrote in his official statement, "Corporal Dunham's courageous action and complete disregard for his own safety saved the lives of at least 2 fellow Marines and prevented injury to others. His sacrifice will never be forgotten, and his example will inspire Marines for generations to come." Captain Lasky, the man who had believed in Dunham from the beginning, wrote in a letter to Dunham's family, "Jason understood something fundamental about leadership that many officers never learn. He knew that the mission was not about glory or recognition. It was about bringing his Marines home alive. He succeeded in that mission even as he gave his own life to accomplish it." The tactic, the impossible decision to cover a grenade rather than flee from it, became part of Marine Corps combat training, not as a required action, but as a concept. Urban combat training courses at Camp Lejeune and 29 Palms began including scenarios where distance from a grenade was impossible. Instructors taught Marines to assess geometry, to identify containment options, to understand that sacrifice might be the only tactical solution. The lesson was not always cover grenades. The lesson was, understand when conventional doctrine fails, and be prepared to make impossible choices. And what of the humble hero himself? Jason Dunham received his Medal of Honor in a ceremony attended by his family, his fellow Marines, and senior military officials. But he never wanted fame. He never sought recognition. In letters to his family during his deployment, he rarely mentioned combat. He wrote about his Marines, about the landscape of Iraq, about how much he missed home and his younger siblings. His final letter, written 2 weeks before his death, contained no premonition of what was coming. He told his family he was fine, that his team was doing good work, that he hoped to be home soon. He signed it, as always, "Love, Jason." At his funeral at Arlington National Cemetery, 73 of the 75 Marines from Kilo Company attended. They formed an honor guard. They carried his casket, and when the final rifle salute was fired and taps played, they stood at attention with tears streaming down their faces. One of them, Lance Corporal Hampton, who had been 7 meters from the grenade, placed a handwritten note in his pocket. It read, "You saved my life. I will live well enough for both of us." 20 years later, Jason Dunham's Medal of Honor rests in a special display at the National Museum of the Marine Corps in Quantico, Virginia. A memorial stone stands at the intersection in Fallujah where he made his final decision. Though the location is now peaceful, rebuilt, children playing in streets that once ran with blood. It is a reminder of a time when one young man from a small town in upstate New York understood that true heroism is not about seeking glory or performing impossible feats of strength. It is about making the hardest choice when every instinct screams for self-preservation. The battlefields where he fought are now quiet. The Jalan district of Fallujah, where he covered that grenade, has been rebuilt. The dirt road where he pinned his helmet to the ground is now paved, with shops and homes where rubble once stood. But the decision remains etched into the history of the Marine Corps and into the memory of 75 men who came home from that battle. 4 seconds, one impossible decision, 75 lives saved. The Marine from Skyo, who became a legend not through aggression or exceptional skill, but through the simple recognition that sometimes the only tactical solution is sacrifice. In 2014, the United States Navy commissioned the USS Jason Dunham, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, naming the ship in his honor. The destroyer's motto, chosen by Dunham's family, is simple: from the ground up. It refers to his humble beginnings. It refers to his rise through the ranks. And it refers to that moment on a dirt road in Fallujah when he pressed his helmet to the ground and gave everything. The most dangerous calculation in warfare is not about firepower or tactics. It is about the value of one life measured against many. Jason Dunham made that calculation in less than 2 seconds and executed it without hesitation. Sometimes the difference between catastrophic defeat and decisive victory is 4 minutes. Sometimes it is one person recognizing what needs to be done and having the courage to do it. Sometimes it is a 22-year-old corporal from a town of 2,000 people who understood that leadership means going first into danger and, when necessary, going last out of life. One helmet, one grenade, one decision that changed 75 futures. The Marine who proved that the most powerful weapon in war is not the one you carry in your hands, but the one you carry in your heart.